trumpet sounded, the whole world bowed. Three men stood there all alone. They said, not gonna bow to your idol. We won't bow, oh no. Not gonna bow to your idol. We won't bow, oh no.
They had the highest homicide rate of any people group in history. They were reclusive, mysterious, as well as astonishingly violent. They had successfully warded off the government, the military, and progress itself, retreating deeper and deeper into the jungle with every outside contact. They lived as they had for centuries, walled in by the jungle. They were Stone Age people alive and well in the 20th century. Neighboring tribes referred to them simply as the savages. They were the outlaws. They were young. They were smart. They had bright futures in many different fields. They were the movers and shakers of their time. They were adventurers. 5 men, passionate and obedient for the sake of the call of God.
Nobody stood and applauded them, so they knew from the start this road would not lead to fame. All they really knew for sure was Jesus had called to them. He said, come follow me, and they came with reckless abandon. They came and they answered, we will abandon it all for the sake of the call. No other reason at all but the sake of the call. Wholly devoted to live and to die for the sake of the call, the sake of the call.
They were brave. They were spirited. They were pushing the boundaries of traditional views. They were innovators and pioneers of their time. They were adventurers. 5 women, passionate, obedient for the sake of the call of God.
Wholly devoted to live and to die, not for the sake of cause, not for a dream or a promise, but simply because it is Jesus who calls, and if we believe, we'll obey and we'll answer. Sing it with me. Oh, we will abandon it all for the sake of the call. No other reason at all but the sake of the call. Wholly devoted to live and to die for the sake of the sake of the call.
So the team of Operation Alka was born, and time was of the essence. The oil companies were weary of struggling with the indigenous peoples who stood in the way of their oil. The government was embarrassed because they couldn't control their citizens, and the tribe was in jeopardy at their own hands due to intertribal warfare. No matter who struck first, extinction seemed inevitable. So in the fall of 1955, just before the flood season began, the missionary team realized they had a window of time. They stepped through it.
We were dreamers, new believers, nothing in the world to fear. We had discovered the treasure of the love and the grace of God, and it burned like a fire in our heart, and we would throw back our heads and run with the passion through the fields of forgiveness and grace. We carry the eternal flame with an undying hope and a blazing conviction, and a truth that will never fade. We were glowing in the dark, children of the burning heart. Hey, yeah, hey, yeah. Children of the burning heart. Yeah, yeah.
They knew the risk, they knew the sacrifice, but they knew that somewhere, far removed from everything else, lived a group of people in darkness, people that had never been introduced to their Creator. No one had ever brought them the good news of God's love. They had to be told before it was too late. The missionary team felt this was the reason they were alive.
My dad was killed when I was just a little boy, and it was with 4 of his friends, and it was a really violent killing. And people ask me all the time, you know, how I could forgive the people that killed my dad, including grandfather Minkai, who I think was the one who finally did kill my dad. But, you know, I'm sure that they don't understand the perspective from which I saw it all. My dad and his 4 friends, Roger, Pete, Ed, and Jim, knew that they were risking their lives to try to contact this violent group that had never had friendly contact with the outside world. And then when it came right down to them being attacked, they had guns and they could have defended themselves, but they preferred to die rather than kill, even in self-defense. My aunt was living with a young girl from the Waodani tribe who had fled. My mom went on praying for the Waodani, and then Aunt Rachel went back in to live with these people for the very first time as outsiders. And my aunt knew that there was a risk, and I knew that there was a risk that she would be killed. Year and a half later, when I got to go in and live with Aunt Rachel with these people who had killed my dad, that isn't the way I saw them at all. I saw them as being the most special people in the whole world. I mean, why else would my dad have been willing to die for them, my mom go on praying for them, and my aunt risk her life for them? People think it's so amazing that I would forgive Minkai, but you know, in their culture, because he killed my family, it was my right and my responsibility when I grew up to kill him or his family. But when I went in to live in the jungles, I was just, 8 or 9. And I didn't have any of the skills that I needed to live in the jungles. And Minkai, I went to my Aunt Rachel, and he said, "What's wrong with Steve?" They call me Baba down there. "What's wrong with Baba? He doesn't know how to make poison for his darts, he can't make darts, he doesn't know how to use the blowgun, he can't track animals." He said, "He doesn't know anything." He said, "Who's going to teach him how to live?" And my aunt said, "You having speared his father, who do you say should teach him to live?" And he came back and he said, "Me having speared his father, now I say I myself will teach him to live." But you know, in doing that, because he had started walking a new trail, he had no idea. I was just a little boy. He had no idea whether I was going to walk God's trail or whether I would use the skills that he was teaching me to come back and kill him. But he forgave me what he assumed I would grow up to do because he had begun walking this new trail. So really, if you look at it in the reality in which it took place, the forgiveness that he was willing to believe that I had given up my vendetta against him, and then gave me the skills that I would need to carry it out if I didn't give it up, his was maybe the greater forgiveness than mine. When I was a teenager, my sister decided that she wanted to be baptized, and my mom said, since you don't have a father of your own who's living, why don't you choose somebody who's had a positive spiritual impact in your life, and I'll ask him to baptize you. Well, Kathy immediately chose Chemo, one of the men who had killed my dad and Roger and Pete and Ed and Jim. And I thought, you know, look at these men here, Chemo and Dewey and Minkai. They're the same men who were here at this very place and killed my dad. And now here they are. They're spiritual leaders in our lives. And I realized if we let God write the story, He doesn't always promise that all the chapters will be easy, but He does promise that in the last chapter, He will make sense of all the other things that have happened in our life, even though some of them are terribly painful. And I'm very, very thankful that He has. We have become, as Grandfather says, we have become like just one family, because we all have the same Father. Minkai winanyeri waurani nangi pinte kiandapa. He says, a long time ago, my grand, they were very angry. They would die, they were angry, and they were killing each other. Pinte is the word for angry, furious. We would go and spear other people in our tribe, and they would come and spear us. It was just like that. Now, we're not being angry. He said, now some of us who were enemies, who were hating and furious with each other, now we've become like one, like one head, like one family. That's what I have to say. Do you understand me?
Okay.
People have been able, in this story, to identify with my loss. But what they can't seem to identify with is how I and my family, how we experienced gain. You know, when my dad was killed and I was a little boy, I can still remember that sense of anguish, disenfranchisement. I mean, my whole little boy universe revolved around my dad. I wanted to grow up and be just like him. He was my hero. When my mom told me that he was never coming back, I mean, it shattered my whole world. I thought there was nothing left to live for. But you know what? Just a short while ago, when Christmas was coming and Grandfather came up to our house, I saw him with my three of my granddaughters. He was holding one who was asleep in his arms, and the other two were draped over his shoulders. And that night, as Jenny and I were going to bed, Grandfather had already gone to sleep, and Jenny said, "Just want to go in and kiss him once more, don't you?" And you know, then I realized that same yearning that I had for my father, I now feel for Grandfather Minkai, the man who killed him. That's something that doesn't happen in fiction. That can only happen in true life.